TCR is brought to you by Capital Farm Credit. Together we're better. Mueller Incorporated. Made in America, made to last. Hoheim Prairie Insurance. Texans serving Texans since 1892. Golden Chick, the original and still the best. And top Texas towns Abilene, Hillsboro, Waxahachie, and San Angelo.
Hi, this is Governor Greg Abbott. I want to say congratulations to Texas legend Bob Phillips on the 50th season of the Texas Country Reporter. In the past 50 years, no journalist has driven more miles or told more Texas stories than Bob. He has shared extraordinary tales from Texans in every corner of our great state and has been an ambassador to all corners of the world. Bob, thank you so much for working every day to show why Texas is the most exceptional state in America. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Texas.
Why don't you just pop in and travel with me?
Pop in and travel with us.
50 years. And now I find myself wondering, where did the time go? You know, to me, it seems like just yesterday that we were celebrating much lesser milestones.
Charles Kuralt once said, Americans are up to all sorts of surprising things. You never know what until you go out and take a look. Well, back in the early 70s, we decided to do just that. We named the show 4Country, hopped in a van and hit the back roads. We decided to go out and take a look. That was what, 14 or 15 years and over 500,000 miles ago.
And now, instead of 14 or 15 years and 500,000 miles, we're celebrating 50 years and more than 3 million miles. You know, the very first time we climbed into that old Ford Econoline van, I never dreamed that we'd make it to where we are today, welcoming you to the 50th year of our journey down the Texas back roads.
And what a journey this is. I'm so thankful I hopped in with Bob to tell the stories across Texas. We are incredibly honored and proud that your decades of support have set a new milestone.
This program is now the longest running independently produced TV show in American television history. Thank you for that. So we're going to celebrate all year long, both on the air and in person.
In addition to all new stories, we'll share golden moments from some of your past favorites, and we'll take some return trips and see some old friends.
And we're going to have events all over the state, including a concert series of symphonic music that we call a Texas tribute.
So let's get this 50th season started. And Bob, I love when you tell the story of how it all started.
Well, back in 1972, a group of guys working at a Dallas television station decided to try something different. Now, at the time, we were all involved in covering the news of the day, fires, wrecks, school board meetings, and the occasional lost dog. But we asked ourselves, what if we set out to find some good news? Stories about people, their lives, their accomplishments. What if for 1/2 hour every week, we told the stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things? Would folks even watch something like that? So to find what we were looking for, we got out of the big city and set out on a journey down Texas back roads. We sent back stories about the people we found there. Farmers, bakers, boot and spur makers, people who had smiles on their faces and stories in their hearts. We sent back stories about the history, the people, the culture. We sent back stories about Texas. Now, television has always had its rules. There are certain ways you're supposed to do this and supposed to do that. What some might call the science of television. We did not always follow those rules. They say you have to cover what's popular. Well, we couldn't care less. They say you have to have some controversy in your stories to make people watch. Well, we don't do controversy, yet people still watch. They say you shouldn't do stories on the same subject twice, but we've been doing just that since I was a skinny kid with black hair.
Trite? Probably.
Repetitious? Definitely. We admit there is a
Common thread running between most of the stories we
tell you. It reminds me of that Paul McCartney song that says, "You'd think that people would have had enough of
silly love songs, yet I look around me and I see it isn't so."
Well, you'd think that people would have had enough of what I call feel-good features, yet for whatever the reason, I look around me and I see it isn't so. And you know what?
That's one of those things that I hope just doesn't change much. I'm Bob Phillips,
your Texas country reporter.
They call me Train.
Why do they call you Train?
Because I do that imitation of a locomotive.
You imitate a locomotive?
Locomotive.
Let's hear that.
Well, it kind of go like this. That's the reason they call me Train.
It'll feel kind of slimy or slick. Then you feel a little bit of roughness because the scales have a texture. You know, there's a landscape of hills and valleys that the scales create.
After so many years of this odd ritual, people in Portland, Texas don't bat an eye when they drive by and see Dinah Bowman giving a bath to a dead fish.
It's just like any other art. You know, each artist has their own idiosyncrasies, if you will.
For decades, the carcasses of everything from mullet to marlin, ballyhoo, bluefish, redfish, tuna, and tarpon have found a place in Dinah's art studio and frame shop.
I do all my color blending directly on the fish.
With paper, paint, and patience, Dinah reaches back almost 2 centuries in this obscure Japanese art form called gyotaku, something she mastered almost 50 years ago.
I can feel every scale. This is the tricky part. Each one is an original.
Look at that.
Wow.
Well, you haven't lost it, have you?
Thank you. See all the scales, how they stand out. This is to create a memory for the fisherman.
Now, for so many anglers on the Texas coast, Dinah's studio is the first stop after a long fishing trip.
I've exhibited at Smithsonian, and my work was chosen to travel with the Smithsonian Institute Traveling Exhibition Service throughout the U.S. and Canada and Australia. More recently, I've had shows in New Zealand and Korea and Japan.
How does that feel?
It was incredible. It's still incredible.
How do you know what to work on, Dinah?
Well, I have a freezer full of goodies, and this one's really interesting.
Dinah, this looks like this fish has been in here for 30 years.
That's a pompano. Here's a little flounder.
Dinah traveled to Japan to learn what to do with a fish after you catch it.
Well, it was way back in 1990 when we made our first trip to Dinah Bowman's studio in this very same building, still in awe of the same creativity.
People come in the shop and sometimes they don't really believe that I take rubbings of the real fish. Usually your first prints are not as good as your consecutive ones because the fish is not well saturated with ink.
None of us ever intended to meet back here 3 decades later, and yet we have, just in time to help Dinah with her latest creation. It seems with every piece, she keeps pushing the boundaries of this storied art form.
To me, with what I do, it's memory making. This tuna is 12 feet long, and this fish weighed almost 650 pounds.
My goodness.
And so I don't lift fish this heavy, so we printed it on the dock with a team of 5 other volunteers that help us, lay the fabric down on the fish and then lift it off. I think what's so wonderful about this experience is the fact that y'all wanted to come back and spend time with me 30 years later.
We were pretty fascinated then, so we said, we've got to check in with Dinah and see, is she still doing this? Are things still the same? And I think for the most part they are.
What's amazing is not just you, Bob. It's the same cameraman too.
We found out 30 years ago, if you want to hear a good fish tale, forget the bait and tackle shops. It's a tiny cinder block building in Portland, Texas, where Dinah Bowman has been putting the finishing touches on so many fishing trips. With a little paint and a gentle stroke, a self-portrait emerges from the deepest ocean.
What's the same from 30 years ago is these hands. It's the same touch, it's the same feel, and I'm not done yet.
And if you'd like to talk to Dinah Bowman about her artwork, you'll find her right there on 5th Street in Portland.
In the same place she was when we first found her more than 30 years ago. Now here are some other things you'll want to know.
Don't forget to pick up your copy of Bob's new book, A Good Long Drive, all about Bob's life and TCR, at TexasCountryReporter.com, Amazon, and wherever books are sold.
Hey, Shirley, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, and you, Bobby? You doing okay?
Doing good, just hot.
Oh,
just hot, that's it. Really do appreciate your support in that last election, Shirley.
Oh, yeah, anytime, anytime.
We don't have a ceremonial mayor in San Felipe. It's hands-on here.
Coming along real well. Any idea when they're gonna start on AC?
I've gotten calls at night. Mayor, water's backing up over here at my house. I mean, whatever the people need, that's what you do. What's going on, Jack? Doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing.
Mary Lee, what's going on, man?
All right.
San Felipe reminds us of so many communities across Texas. It seems the smaller the town, the bigger the job of mayor. And that's just how the Honorable Bobby Byars likes it. He's held office for more than 20 years straight in the only place he's ever called home.
I grew up here, born and raised here. The people here make the town. Since I love this town, I love this job because people need to remember the town of San Felipe because it was really important.
Now, most folks aren't able to forget this Central Texas town because they've probably never heard of it, and even fewer know its incredible history. The seeds of Texas independence were planted here, and a communal sacrifice changed the course of the Revolution. These events were so significant, the Texas Historical Commission built a $12 million museum in this community of about 800 residents.
If you imagine yourself as a Texan who likes to put your boots in history's footsteps, you want to go to places where things really happened, this has got to be high on the list. Even better, most Texans don't know much about this story.
Bryan McCauley manages the museum at San Felipe de Austin, named after the original settlement established on the banks of the Brazos River. Bryan, Mayor Byars, and an army of supporters worked for more than a decade to highlight this important stop on the Texas Independence Trail.
San Felipe de Austin is a town that Stephen F. Austin founded to serve as the administrative headquarters for his colony. The colony is where Mexico is letting him bring immigrants to settle in Mexican Texas.
This area is really where Texas history, to me, really started. This was the first colonial capital of Texas. And the only reason it probably doesn't exist that way today, and we're not super big like most of the cities, is that it was burned to the ground. Some of the most famous people in Texas history came through here, came through San Felipe.
William Travis lived here before he dies at the Alamo. Stephen F. Austin, of course, is the founder of the town.
At this historic site, artifacts, technology, and outdoor exhibits tell rich and deep stories from San Felipe de Austin. Homesteaders building new lives on the frontier, slaves who deserved freedom of their own, and Texian revolutionaries who were fighting a desperate war for independence. San Felipe is where they took a drastic gamble to save their cause by giving up everything else.
After the fall of the Alamo, residents are evacuated across the river, and the evacuation of San Felipe is literally a one-day event. The scouts believe they see the Mexican army. They tell people today's the day. You pack up stuff, we're burning the town tonight.
Captain Baker set fire to his own office and bedroom. Lieutenant Borden got the chunk of fire out of the fireplace of my store, with which he set fire to the buildings of the Butler Hotel. I set fire to my store with my own hands. As Lieutenant Borden picked up the chunk of fire, he remarked, "It is a hard order to obey, Mr. Huff, but the order must be obeyed. We will long remember the evening and night of the 29th of March, 1836.
They said, we'd rather burn this.
That's correct.
Than let it fall in the enemy's hands.
That's correct.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't. I can't. That took a lot of bravery and a lot of thinking. I mean, be hard for someone to imagine doing that, you know, burning everything that you've built so no one else can attain it.
That sacrifice led to General Santa Anna's defeat just 2 weeks later at San Jacinto. The war was won, Texas was a republic, and San Felipe de Austin was destroyed. Only a handful of citizens returned, including a baker and former slave named Celia Allen Gonzalez, or as Bobby calls her, great-great-great-grandma.
If you had your great-great-grandmother here today, what would you say to her?
You know, the first thing I would do, I would say thank you for being such a strong woman, to endure those times and to attain the freedom to start our lineage. I couldn't imagine going through that. I just feel like that was the starting point of our family, because there was no longer any slavery. We were free. See, I have a family tree that shows from her from all the way on down to my children now. It's amazing what she went through, the bravery that she had and what she had to endure to really start this lineage. It helped to build the backbone of this family, that we came from slavery to my dad becoming a council member, to one day that God allowing me to be the mayor. I mean, it's just one extreme to the other, by the grace of God.
What do we owe to those who came before us, whose struggles and sacrifices paved the way? For history lovers like Bryan McCauley and Bobby Byars, the answer is simple: remembrance. And after years of hoping, a Texas community finally has a place that takes their story from untold to unforgettable.
When I became mayor, we started a new organization that started promoting the history of San Felipe. I mean, it took a lot of work, and finally we got there.
You know, Texans love this history story, and we'd love for you to make a stop at San Felipe de Austin as one of those things that defines you as a Texan.
I teach my girls about them, and I bring them up here as well so they can remember their ancestry. It's a very important part of their upbringing, and I'm proud of it, extremely proud of it.
If you don't get what I'm seeing, which is the river and the hills, then you'll get what I'm feeling, which is love and peace and so much happiness being in the hill country of Texas and getting a piano and knowing all these different ranches that have piano and being welcome there.
We want to thank you again for hopping in and traveling along with us. I'm Kelly Phillips.
And I'm Bob Phillips, and this is Texas Country Reporter.
See you next time.
TCR is brought to you by Capital Farm Credit. Together we're better. Mueller Incorporated. Made in America, made to last. Hoheim Prairie Insurance. Texans serving Texans since 1892. Golden Chick, the original and still the best. And top Texas towns Abilene, Hillsboro, Waxahachie, and San Angelo.